Okay, today we're going to learn how to cast a hand crank that broke for a wood burner, and it's complete with a hollowed out section just like the original, except it's going to be in cast aluminum. This is high grade aluminum. This is used in cylinder heads. It's A356, and this is the setup that we have. It's a pattern that we 3D printed, and then it has a core tool as well. So in today's lesson we're going to learn how to make this part. What we're doing today is we're making a hand crank for our wood burner because it broke off. And granted, the one that was made for the wood burner is cast iron. We're going to try ours out of aluminum. And so I 3D printed the mold halves and prepped them, and I've sprayed them with silicone spray, and I have a special kind of mold system. So I have some sodium silicated sand that I've made that I'm putting on here. A special mold that we've developed. And so we do the first half, you basically just do like you would on a conventional mold. You coat it, you treat it just like you would a regular mold. We'll let this harden. I'll get it nice and flat, and then we'll do our other half when this is dried. The downside to this is that you have to wait for it to dry. Meantime, we can make some cores. We're going to make a core set right here. Which basically you just fill this. It's kind of a pain, but you fill it and jam it with a stick. It's important that we get this done right away with some fresh stuff. Okay, so when we come back, we'll have the core made, and then we're going to do the other half. So we're getting ready to flip this. So basically this is a special grid that we put together. As you can see, the pattern is in the sand. So we got to make sure we put the bottom down. So I suppose I could have left it up. What I needed was that board down. Okay, so now what we're going to do is screw the board onto it. When we come back, the board will be screwed on. Okay. Okay, so one of the things we have to do is make a gate for filling. So we're just going to cut in like this for now. And you can see the sand is still a little soft, which we'll work with. Okay. So we won't excavate this thing completely yet because we still have to put the other half on. I probably shouldn't have done this. So what we're going to do is put some cornstarch or something to keep this from sticking. Typically I use this material and just spray that on. It's silicone based mold release. And it takes about a minute to dry, but I just want to make sure it doesn't stick when we do our second half. Okay. So then with this pinned, put this on there like that. We're going to take this half of the mold and we'll fill it from the top. So we're going to have to make this so it's unscrewable. We didn't do that. When we come back, we'll have that ready. Okay, so we're adding sand into a bucket. We're asking for 6,000 grams. Right now we have like 3,000 something. You don't have to show me bouncing through. Basically what I have is sand here that I got from it's official foundry sand. So we got 5,700 whatever, so we're real close. So we'll go to 6,000. Oops. Still a little. Okay. So then the magic numbers for this material, which is basically Refco Bond 250 is what this is. We're going to put in 300 grams because that's 5% by weight. It's 5% by weight. So we're putting in 300 grams. And this binding material is the official stuff that they use in foundries. Okay, so then that's one part of the mix. We could, if we were patient enough, we could use just that stuff, but we have a catalyst which we use, which is 1% of that, so that's 30 grams. So we're putting in 30 grams of this into here. Now, one thing you notice, I don't have gloves on right now, but I will quickly switch to gloves because you don't want to have this stuff on your skin when it's mixing, because it can turn into like a glass type material. So another term for this is water glass, is what it's called. Okay, so we're going to put this in here. It's called sodium silicate with a 30-minute set. So we're going to we have a special mixer, and I run it backwards. As you can see, we have a 3D printed holder that we've developed for this process right here. It's a 3D printed holder that makes it work real great for just quick use, and it's held up pretty well. Okay, so now we're going to fill in the rest of the half of the mold, and then we'll put the cap on it when we're done. Like I said, this is the official sand that is used in the foundries. So we need to press down on it. Don't put your hand in there because your hand doesn't have a glove on it. Okay, so I tend to pack it in. Remember, I sprayed the surface so that the two don't bind together. You can see it moves around a bit. It's okay. What we're shooting for is that it's packed down well, especially. Everyone can hear you humming, you know that, right? So we're packing it in, and we just need to make sure that we can actually get the board mounted on it. And you can see that I'm not using the full thing because it gets to be wasteful. You're not really using it all. Alright. Okay, so that'll do it. We're going to let it set, harden is what I really mean, and then we'll be ready for our next phase. Okay, so what we're going to do here is pull the two halves apart. Hopefully we don't have a disaster here. We have big chunks of sand in there, but they are hard as rock. So but it looks like they're glued together. Should have put powder between the two. Alright, well, we'll have to come back when I put this apart. Okay, so I've got them coming apart, so I'll have to put them back in the mold holders. I should have used probably some powder. So they stuck together pretty good. So crack them apart a little bit. Okay. So they should just come apart now. Like that. So the hardest part now is actually getting these out of here. So our next step will be getting them out without breaking these. As these are not hard as rock, but they're hard. This one's harder because this was the first one. This one's not as hard. So we'll pop this out, and then we'll reassemble the mold. So we've got the first half out. I'm going to vacuum off mold half. The resin is in there. And then we're going to see how well our core fits in there. Now, one of the things you should do with your cores is spray them. So then this is the core that goes in the center of it. It just fits in here like that. So it's not going to be super great with that big chunk missing, but that part of the part, when it's actually functional, doesn't matter that much. And the main reason why they have that core going all the way across is so that the part will actually mold better. It's hard to put let's say we just had a core right here, it might sag one side or the other and it might not mold as well, so that's the main reason they did that. So to pull the part out, we have to kind of like pry it out. So get under one edge. Pry and lift. That's the other half of the mold. And so we'll vacuum that spot off. The nice thing about this mold is that we probably will be okay not having to use the containers we have because we have the core which will line everything up reasonably and the outside. So we'll reassemble it real quick. Looks like our gate will be okay for flowing. the next thing we'll do is bring it out and we'll mold it. Okay, I refilled the backside here. I assembled the mold halves and put them back inside the framework. And now I'm going to bolt this down. The main reason why I have this, it just makes it easier to do molding, carrying it out. And this acts as my mini box. This is kind of like a sandbox, put in a, my own little container. So that's the main reason why we do it this way. It's another way of doing it. We usually do swords and things like that in there, but typically we won't use silicated sand to do that. We'll use form sands like Retro Bond or Refco Bond or whatever that stuff is. So next time you see us, we'll be casting. Okay, nothing says that you have to mold during the summertime. That's a misnomer. Today it's pretty cold today. I think it's probably around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, so the sun hasn't quite come up. But I gotta get something done today. So I'm setting up the furnace. You can see in there, see that it isn't quite melted. We've got our casting set up, getting set up right here, right next to the table. And we have a metal shield and a dump area for it. We'll clear everything out in case there's issues with spillage, but we're going to be pouring directly into here for our pour this morning. And here we go. Okay. There it is. Bubble for a little bit, and we're going to pour off the rest. Okay, so we're getting ready to pull it apart. Down. We'll hammer it off. You can take a final look at it. Right there in the ground. So there it is. This is the, we had to make a really big thing, which is kind of wasteful, but I needed one of these handles. Mine was pretty beat up, so I'll be happy with this. Looks like the core part worked alright. That's what I was looking for. So when we come back, we'll have a look at what it really looks like. We'll let it cool down here. Okay, here's the finished product. We're going to have to polish it off because the sand stuck to it. There's evidently some stuff out there that you can put with your silicated sand, which will make it's a carbon-based, graphite-based material that you spray on your mold before you cast, and it will keep the sand from sticking to your parts. So what I'll have to do here is brush it off with a brush, and which is fine. We'll bring it in the house, and the end that I was looking for did what it was supposed to, so I'm happy about that. So the next thing to do is clean up a little bit more. I ground it off. I ran into a problem with my where I poured it in. It collapsed, and that's because my riser wasn't long enough. So you need to keep that in mind when you have a big thick section like this. You need to have a big area for it to shrink into, because what happens is it shrunk into this part. So this is our first test of the tool, and it fits on that little peg there. Perfect. Exactly what we want it to do.